If you look at footage of this girl and I ask you to guess what crime she committed, without knowing the context, judging by her reactions, you might say speeding or driving under the influence. And you wouldn't be entirely wrong. But on top of those charges, she's also facing 4 counts of felonious assault and 4 counts of murder for killing her boyfriend and friend. After her sentence was read, though, her confidence and smiles turned into tears. It was just after sunrise on July 31st, 2022, when a 2018 Toyota Camry roared into the quiet streets of Strongsville, Ohio. 17-year-old Mackenzie Shirilla was behind the wheel. Her 20-year-old boyfriend Dominic Russo and his friend Davian Flanagan crammed into the back seat. A few heartbeats later, the Camry slammed into the brick wall of a business at the corner of Progress Drive and Alameda Drive. Witnesses described the crash as cataclysmic. By the time police arrived, Dominic and Davian were dead, and Mackenzie was trapped in the mangled wreck, unconscious, bleeding and badly hurt. What began as an ordinary summer morning was about to become the centre of a nationwide true crime drama. To understand that morning, we have to rewind to the months before. Mackenzie Shirilla was a high school senior from nearby Strongsville. Dominic Russo was a few years older, a recent grad who ran a small clothing business and doted on his nieces and nephews. The two had met as teenagers and dated off and on for 4 years, even moving in together by late 2021. By the middle of 2022, things between Mackenzie and Dominic had gotten rocky. Dominic's mum, Christine Russo, told investigators the relationship had been strained for months. Constant breakups and makeups, heated arguments, even threats. Christine still thought of Mackenzie like family, but she couldn't ignore how Mackenzie was getting more possessive. Behind closed doors, the little blow-ups were happening more often, and friends were starting to worry. One night in July confirmed their worst fears. Sometime mid-month, Dominic called his mum in secret saying he was in a bad situation with Mackenzie. A family friend, Christopher Martin, jumped in his car to help. He ended up following Dominic's Jeep as it drove next to Mackenzie's Camry on the interstate. Over the phone, Martin could hear Dominic yelling at Mackenzie, and through their open windows he heard Mackenzie screaming, "I'm going to wreck this car right now!" When the cars finally pulled over, Mackenzie was flailing her arms and shouting. Dominic scrambled out of her car, shaken, while Mackenzie kept swinging her hands at him. Dominic jumped into Martin's car and they sped off, leaving her alone in the Camry. By the time they got to the Russo house, Dominic was pale and trembling. Looking back, the warning signs were all there. No police reports came out of that highway scare, but Dominic's family never forgot it. Then, just days before the crash, something else came up. Investigators later found videos on a friend's phone, hidden in Dominic's house, showing Mackenzie screaming at him after that fight. In the grainy clips, she's swearing, threatening him, and even promising to break into his house. Those videos only surfaced after Dominic's death, and they showed just how bad things had gotten. Still, on the surface, life went on. The night of the crash started like any other. On July 30th, 2022, Mackenzie, Dominic and Davian went out with friends. They made a quick stop at a backyard graduation party around 10:15 p.m, but left after a few minutes. An hour later, they headed to the house of 19-year-old Paul Burlinghouse, a friend from school. Paul later told the court the vibe was pretty chill, like just a normal sleepover. They listened to music, some of the older kids smoked a little weed, but there was no drinking and no fighting. Paul said Mackenzie and Dominic seemed fine. After midnight, everyone settled in. Mackenzie on one couch, Davian on another. Dominic was lying down too, but by 4 a.m, when Paul drifted back to sleep, Mackenzie and Dominic had quietly slipped out. By 5:30 a.m, Mackenzie was behind the wheel of her Camry, Dominic and Davian riding along. They cruised down Progress Drive, a sleepy 35-mile-per-hour road, laughing and joking at first. But then Mackenzie floored it. The Camry shot from around 40 miles per hour to almost 100. Without warning, it jumped the curb and slammed straight into a brick wall. 20 seconds later, 2 lives were gone. Officer Michael Galassi, first on the scene, said it looked like the car had been cut in half. The front end crushed into the wall, glass and metal everywhere. He saw Mackenzie pinned against the seat, her lower body trapped beneath the dashboard, airbags blown. It was a scene no one there would ever forget. In the front passenger seat was 19-year-old Davian Flanagan. He was slumped back, head tilted upward, not breathing, the kind of stillness that told you right away something was very wrong. His injuries were bad, especially the trauma to his head. Behind him, Dominic Russo was pinned under the reclined seatback, his body crumpled in a way that made Officer Galassi's stomach drop. For a moment, Galassi thought all three were gone. The car looked so destroyed it felt like a miracle anyone could still be alive. He called for medics, and within minutes firefighters were on scene with the jaws of life. They smashed windows, sliced through mangled metal, and tried to make space to reach whoever was left inside. At first there was only silence. Then, buried under the deployed airbags, came the faintest sound. Mumbling. It was Mackenzie Shirilla, the teenage driver. She was still alive. They got her out and laid her on a stretcher beside Davian. By now she was groaning, barely conscious, but still able to whisper one thing. "How is Davian?" The answer wasn't good. He was technically still alive, and they rushed to get him onto an air ambulance, but he didn't make it to the hospital. Dominic's fate was decided right there at the scene. Medics said there was nothing they could do. Mackenzie was airlifted to a trauma centre with serious injuries to her leg and arm. She'd need surgery, but she was breathing. A blood test later showed she hadn't been drinking. She was awake enough to answer questions, but said she couldn't remember anything about the crash. By the time the sun was up, word had already spread through Strongsville. 2 young men were gone, and it wasn't because of some random tragic accident. The whole community was left stunned and heartbroken. In the days after the crash, detectives interviewed friends and family, collected debris, and pulled the Camry's black box. Inside the car, they also found a digital scale, 2 phones, and a bag under the driver's seat holding 8.1 grams of mushrooms plus some cannabis. Mackenzie denied using drugs, and her blood test showed only trace THC, no alcohol. But the stash became part of the case. The black box data told the real story. For the 4.6 seconds before impact, the accelerator was pressed to the floor. No brakes, no swerves. The car fishtailed, then made a sharp right into the wall. Mechanics confirmed there was no malfunction. The Camry worked fine. A month later, Mackenzie was charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder and other offences. At trial, prosecutors said she chose a deserted route and aimed at the building. The crash video, called Chilling and Tragic by Judge Nancy Russo, showed the car accelerating straight in. The defence claimed she might have fainted or had a seizure, but the judge wasn't convinced. On August 14, 2023, Mackenzie was found guilty on all counts. This was not reckless driving. This was murder, Russo said, sentencing her to 2 concurrent life terms with parole possible after 15 years.